Hi, everyone. Welcome to Face with Chancellor May. I'm excited to be here talking with students, faculty, and staff innovators about what they're working on and how they're making a difference in the real world. Since she was a little girl, Theanne Griffith has loved both storytelling and science. Today, she is a neuroscientist, an assistant professor at UC Davis College of Biological Sciences, and the author of the STEM-themed chapter book series, The Magnificent Makers. I love these titles. They include How to Test a Friendship, Brain Trouble, and Writing Sound Waves. The fourth in the series, The Great Germ Hunt, is due out later this year. So Theanne, welcome to UC Davis and welcome to Face.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. I'm excited to have you. So you're new to UC Davis. So tell me how it's going so far, how you like living on the West Coast, all those sorts of things.
Well, I must say I am thrilled with the West Coast life. I'm originally from Virginia, and I've spent most of my time on the East Coast, a brief stint in Chicago in the Midwest, and I actually kind of actively avoided the West Coast in my younger years for whatever reason. I don't know what I was thinking, probably the stubborn East Coaster in me, but it's just been fabulous. The weather has been amazing, but more than anything, I've just found, a really nice home here at UC Davis. And I felt that when I was interviewing for the position that I'm in. And despite being in a global pandemic and not necessarily seeing everybody in the way that I might have, were we not living under these conditions, even with all of that taken into consideration, it's just been overwhelmingly such a warm welcome. My departmental colleagues are wonderful. My chair has been fantastic, Fernando Santana, and getting me set up. So I honestly couldn't be too much happier. We have a pool, so that's cool also.
Well, that's great to hear. I'm glad you're settling in. And I assure you that the winters here are better than Chicago, or any place on the East Coast. But what is it about UC Davis specifically that was attracted and brought you here?
Yeah, one thing that I noticed was a sense of happiness, a sense of people feeling happy with the work that they were doing. And that was something, so when I interviewed, it was obviously pre-COVID. So that was something that was very tangible with, during my interview process, during my seminar, during my chalk talk, in my conversations with faculty, during my lunch with students. It was just so clear that this was a happy environment. And I would say that has stood the test of time, at least in the few months that I've been here since starting my lab. It's also extremely collaborative, and not just in name, but in practice. And I see that in the papers that are published from the members of my department. They're often authored by multiple faculty within the department. And so that sense of friendliness, of collaboration, and I think that really just gives the overall environment, it makes it feel like happy and pleasant to be here. People are excited to go to work, and that's where I want to be.
That could be our new tagline, UC Davis, a friendly, collaborative, happy place.
There you go. Love it.
You mentioned your lab. Tell us about your research. So what's your elevator pitch that you use to talk about your research?
Yeah, so I'm a sensory neuroscientist, and I'm broadly interested in how our body transmits bodily sensations like temperature and pain. And so right now, I'm really focused on examining the role of voltage-gated sodium channels in transmitting thermal sensations. So to put that in more kind of lay terms, I want to know how our body tells itself that it's cold outside, for example. What are the molecular mechanisms that let us know when we, go outside or when we touch something that the temperature is appropriate for us. And this is important for many reasons. One, temperature sensing is one of those things that we kind of take for granted. We don't really have to think about whether or not we know if it's cold or hot outside. It's something that's so intrinsic to our being that we kind of take it for granted. And I think that is also reflected in the relatively limited number of genetic mutations that completely abolish temperature sensing, right? That would make someone not very suitable, that would make an organism organism not very suitable for survival. So it's a very fundamental sense. And understanding how those senses are transmitted normally can help us treat patients, for example, that have different neurological disorders that make them very sensitive to temperature. And a good example of that is folks who are treated with certain chemotherapeutic agents. They can develop a very strong thermal hypersensitivity, whereby, for example, even opening a refrigerator door, that kind of burst of cool air can be extremely painful. And it can lead people to no longer want to take the chemotherapy that is helping save their life. So not only is it understanding how thermal sensations are transmitted, it has basic science relevance, but also a strong translational component as well.
That's fascinating. I can imagine, as you said, this is something we take for granted. And I can imagine if you were either hypersensitive or not sensitive enough to heat and cold, you'd really be in a bad place. So good luck with the work. Tell me, was it difficult to set your lab up during this pandemic? Have you been able to do that?
Yeah, I would say largely it's actually been quite fine and it hasn't negatively impacted me at all. I just want to commend everyone, and definitely including yourself as the leader of this institution, in your response to COVID, the testing, the vaccines, the daily symptom survey. It's just all so well put together, and it made transversing this kind of unprecedented environment much more straightforward. I would say the only difficult thing is what we all miss, right? The social interactions. I've unfortunately haven't had the opportunity to meet as many other faculty in person, but, through initiatives like the Campos program, which I'm a part of, and just kind of ad hoc grassroots organizing among faculty, I've been able to make some connections outside of my department, but I'm really excited to hopefully at one point in time go back to kind of our in-person life so I can meet more of the awesome faculty here. But setting up the lab, has been pretty straightforward. Had to wait a while for my freezer. Freezers are in short supply these days.
The supply chain issue with freezers.
Exactly. But other than that, it's been quite a nice process.
Great. Glad to hear it. Looking forward to the output that comes out of your work. I want to switch gears, though. And as we mentioned in the intro, you're also a writer, not just a science writer, but you write children's books. So tell me about the motivation, the inspiration to write the Magnificent Makers series.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, I've always been very passionate about science, but also storytelling and writing and reading. And I was that girl on the weekend who was checking out massive stacks of books from the public library, and always had this kind of secret or hidden or unrecognized passion to become an author. But, I kind of had my sights set on science and pursued that career path for the majority of my career. But in 2017, I was on maternity leave with my oldest daughter, and could have been the postpartum hormones, I don't know what, but I was sitting there one day, I remember very vividly, watching the Great British Baking Show on Netflix with my daughter. And I was like, I'm reading all of these books to her. I've always wanted to do this. Just do it, Theanne. Just, go for it. And I did. And it's, been a long process, but it has resulted in this science adventure series, The Magnificent Makers, that I'm just so thrilled to be able to write. As a Black woman that was once a young Black girl, growing up in the 90s, there weren't a lot of books that had people that looked like me. And I don't think I realized until I got older the consequence of that lack of representation on my confidence to be a successful scientist, or even to enter into science, And so being able to highlight young Black and brown kids on the covers of science books and have those books be about them having fun, being about them learning, being about them going on out of this world adventures to this magical laboratory, and not necessarily just have their stories be about racism and kind of the downside about being Black in America, right? I focused on the joyful side, and just seeing kids say, oh, look, she's like me, or, oh, look, I feel seen. I've had parents share those stories with me, and it's just beyond my wildest dreams. It is, I could almost cry sitting here talking about it, to be honest, because I needed these books when I was younger. And I'm glad that at least kids today have them.
That's so inspirational. As a parent of two daughters, mine are 25 and 24 now, though. I wish we'd had a resource like your books when they were growing up. I almost wish they were, young again, but I don't. I'm glad I'm done. But it would have been nice to have had such a series for them to read. You're still writing, right? I think you have another book coming out soon. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, so I have book 4 in the series. The Great Germ Hunt is coming out in October of 2021, and I'm just so excited. I literally wrote this in the middle of the pandemic. I actually have a picture of myself running a behavioral experiment and writing this book. And this one's really close to my heart. I'm obviously not a virologist or a microbiologist, but I incorporate a lot of the techniques that I actively have used in my studies into this book. So they get to use a microscope. I introduce readers to like Petri dishes and agar for growing bacterial colonies. Obviously, we don't call them bacterial colonies in the book, but that message is conveyed, and they get introduced to incubators and lab coats and gloves and PPE. I actually use the word PPE in the book. So that was really fun to be able to really tie in some of the research aspects of what I do into that book. And in addition to book 4, I actually have a 5th book coming out. Not a release date hasn't been set yet, but we're thinking, I think, February 2022. And that one is entitled Race Through Space. And so it's all about our solar system and the different space objects that are found in the solar system, including black holes. Because one thing I've learned from doing these outreach events is that little kids love black holes. Yeah. I get asked about that so much, and I'm not an astrophysicist, so I always have to be careful with my answers, but I knew that I had to do some research and slide that one in there. So those are the books that are scheduled, and I might have some more announcements coming in the following weeks or so, but not just yet.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping I can get a copy of the one about space. I'm a Star Trek fan. You may have heard that. So,
most definitely.
Loving space and loving spaceships. Okay, now this is one of my favorite parts of the show. We call it the hot seat. So we're looking for very short, even one-word answers. So are you ready?
I think so. Let's go.
All right, here we go. Best meal in Davis so far?
Noodle 88 or something like that. Okay. That's the restaurant name. They had excellent ramen. Excuse me. I was blanking. The pressure of the hot is already getting to me.
That's all right. Coolest spot you've discovered around town?
I would say the Arboretum. And I know for a lot of people, maybe not so, but I'm new, so I love that thing.
A popular answer. What do you miss most from back east?
Snow, actually. I did miss it. My daughter woke up Christmas morning and said it didn't come.
How old is your daughter? That's not one of the questions.
Going on 4. She'll be 4 soon.
That's a good age. So what are you reading right now?
I am currently reading The Vanishing Half. Oh my goodness, that's an excellent one. Highly recommended. Not science related, but very good.
What music is on your playlist, or what artist is on your playlist?
Queen Beyonce, as my 4-year-old calls her, is always at the top of my playlist, followed by her and Rihanna. Excellent choices. So
who's the favorite chancellor you've met so far?
Chancellor May, by far. Light years ahead of
right answer. Okay. Now that's fun. It's your turn. You can ask me a question. Ask me anything you like.
Okay. So let me think. I would say, I think that UC Davis has done a really great job recruiting diverse faculty. And I am actually the product of some of those efforts, right? And so I want to ask a question about the flip side of recruitment, which is retaining diverse faculty. Yeah. And I don't really know, what the stats are on retaining faculty of color and just how that's going and what your strategic plan is for that.
Well, that's a great question. You'd be both pleased and surprised, perhaps, to learn that we've lost very small numbers of faculty to other universities over the past few years. There's a number of reasons for that. We've had a faculty salary equity initiative from 2015 to 2018, which allowed us to equalize or at least fix some of the inequity issues in salary. We've also had the Advancing Faculty Diversity grants from the Office of the President that you probably are referring to, that have allowed us to address some of the retention issues. Our deans have really done an excellent job of addressing retention issues very early on to keep them from becoming problems, as well as the provost. And even every now and then I get involved, but usually those folks handle it. And you also mentioned early Campos. So Campos, for those that don't know, is our Center for Advancing Multicultural Perspectives on Science. There's also a parallel center, Camp SA, which is for social sciences and humanities. But those two centers do a lot of really good work in improving the climate and the environment here for our multicultural faculty so that they feel comfortable and welcome and can be successful. So I think all those things have contributed to our relatively good success at retaining our best faculty. So that's a great question. Well, this was really great. I really enjoyed talking with you, Theanne. Thank you for coming and participating in Face-to-Face and for all your contributions now and to come at UC Davis. And thanks to all the viewers for watching. Look for us again soon here at Face-to-Face, and go Ags.